Welcome to this coruscated episode of Talking Lamar. Today, I'm talking about being a kid working retail at Otasco in Hartwell, Georgia. Let's get to it.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Sorry, I forgot what I was talking about.
What are you talking about?
I am talking to you.
That's just what I was talking about.
It's Talking Lamar.
You know, I've talked a few times about spending summers out of school and going to work with my mom at the drugstore and hanging out. And I did this for years growing up because I started, she started when I was in first grade. So as I was, hanging out. And so Hartwell, Georgia is a small southern town with a courthouse in the dead middle. So there's a square. You call it the courthouse square. So there's streets, all on four sides. And the square consisted of, starting on one end, one street, the Gallant Belk store, which was a clothing store. And a post office was beside it. Then as you went to the next street, on the corner there was the Judy Theater, which was the only theater in town. Then beside it was a florist. And then past that was an A&P grocery store, which was on the other corner. Then if you crossed over, there was a Haley's Drug Store on the next corner. And then across that street, going down that way, was the Otasco store until it burned down. And then we moved it on the other end of town. Now, next to that was a Cato's women clothing store. I don't guess they exist anymore, but that was a big deal with women's clothes. And then the Economy Drug Store, where my mom worked, was right there. And next to it was Harper's 5 and 10 cent store. And I spent hundreds of hours in that store. I mean, it had a candy counter, had a huge toy selection, or at least to me, it seemed like a huge toy selection. And now that I think about it, there was like 2 aisles of toys, but it felt big to me. They had a big selection of model cars and stuff like that, model car kits. And because it was a 5 and dime, they had a bunch of small stuff in different bins and just all kinds of little toys and stuff. And I'm sure that I picked up every item in that toy store multiple times in my life. And if you come out of that, between that and Bales and Cobb's, which was another clothing store, between that was an alleyway. And my mama bought me, to keep me occupied, she bought me a starter pistol one time. And so I mean, it was just, I know that sounds crazy. But
do you think, to keep me, let me quote you. Let me read, we'll ask the stenographer to read back the notes to the jury. To keep me occupied, my mama bought me a starter pistol. Were you lining up the geese to run races? Like, what were you doing with a starter
It's
pistol?
interesting to know what you were occupying your time with a gun.
Well, I would go down in that alley. And I could stay in that alley for a while because I'd be down there shooting bad guys and going around the corner. And I had a whole pretend life going on in that alleyway. And so, and that was pretty cool. Now, I would run out of, the blanks came in a little can, and they looked like pellets for a pellet rifle, but they had gunpowder in them. And so you put them in a starter pistol, you pull it, and I mean, it would go bang. I mean, until I said this out loud, I didn't think it was so crazy.
Clearly.
It's like a lot of my stories until I say it out loud. It doesn't sound so crazy.
Starter pistol. Of all things.
Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but let me stop you. All right. Nothing is coming out of the barrel. Okay, nothing is coming out of the barrel. It's not like a BB gun or anything like that. But it beats the hell out of a stick and me hollering bang, bang, bang. How stupid is that? Give me something to put in my hand and I can pull the trigger and it makes a sound. That really helps my fantasy world that I got going on in the alleyway. I mean,
You do realize if this happened today, they would call the police on you.
And your mom. It's
all
just, I mean, I grew up out west. I mean, my brothers had every iteration of a firearm. They had babies first, whatever. I've never heard of anyone being given a starter pistol to play with. That's all. It was how specific it was.
Yes.
Well, it was a lot safer than giving me a real gun. So that,
I mean, mom knew what she was doing.
Yeah. And so now, once you got out of Bales and Cobb, there was I can't think of the guy's name. He was a barber. He was my barber, and he had a barbershop there. And there was something else down there. But then when you cross over, that was the 3 streets, and then the 4th street that made up the square. It was like a lawyer's office and another clothing store, and that was a boring street. I never hung out there too much. There wasn't much going on. I had plenty to do on them other 3 streets. And as I got a little older, I started to spend most of my time walking around in the Otasco store. Now, Otasco, I've said this before, that stands for Oklahoma Tire and Supply Company. And it was like a hardware store that carried tires, car parts, furniture, appliances, sporting goods, bikes, toys, lawnmowers, tons of other stuff. This was like a Walmart before there was a Walmart. And and the stuff that was in there, man, I could spend hours looking at it. I mean, they were just so many things. They had stereos. I mean, I'm walking around in there all the time. And so eventually, because I hung out there so much, he offered me a job putting together bicycles for Christmas. And then eventually other stuff that needed to be put together. And that's just what I did. Well, by the time I was 10 or so, they let me wait on people because I was in there so much I knew where everything was. So if somebody come in there looking for something, I could take them right to it. And when I got in junior high school, I worked after school. And one of my favorite things was waiting on people that needed car parts. Because we had batteries and tires, and we even had starters and generators, and we had fan belts, water hoses, a lot of different car stuff. And so one of the things, though, that would drive me crazy is somebody would come in, and I would say, all right, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for a fan belt. Okay, what's it for? It's for a 68 Pontiac, blah, blah, blah. And so I look it all up, and I give them the fan belt, and they take it. A few hours later, they come back. Fan belt don't fit. What do you mean it don't fit? Well, that's what it called for. Well, I'm just telling you it don't fit. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden they'll go, now it's not the original motor. I put another motor in it and it come out of a Chevrolet, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I need to know that. I mean, and so it happened. This kind of stuff, it would happen like, so much. And I'm like, of course, none of that stuff would fit. So this happened all the time because the people that were coming in buying parts from us, they're doing their own work. I mean, these are guys that are, and back then it was very prevalent that you fixed your own car. I mean, they had garages, but my daddy, listen, I watched my daddy over the course of years. I watched him replace 2 engines in a pickup truck, and he did every bit of that himself. And
you know what, Lamar, now that you say that, I can't remember a single time when either of my parents took a car to a shop.
No.
I never even
My daddy
thought
did
about
the brakes.
That.
My daddy did the
Oil,
brakes.
everything.
He did everything.
But cars in
simpler.
general were less complicated.
Oh yeah.
No
you
computers.
No. And you could get to everything. There was a lot of room to work. You could get to everything in there. My daddy changed. Listen, of course, there was no such thing as an oil change place. Nobody paid to have their oil changed. They changed their own oil. And of course, sadly, we had this one tree where we poured all the oil, And so I'm sure it was not good. I mean, but
you know what,
thought
Max?
anything about it.
It was under that tree where they buried the animals they were foolish enough to name. So it was just kind of the saddest tree in the land.
That poor tree. Did it live? Did you kill it?
It was a Chinaberry tree. You couldn't kill a Chinaberry tree. I mean,
okay.
So, but everybody would come in.
Wait. When you say stuff like that, Max, have you noticed he'll declare something like, you can't kill a Chinaberry tree? And we're all over here like, Oh yeah, true that. We don't even know what a China berry
I
tree
don't even
is.
know. I've never heard of it. It's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Apparently, you can't remember this. You can't kill one. What does a China berry tree look like? I'm sure I've seen it. I just don't know what it is.
It had little berries, and I don't know why you would call it a China berry. I don't know. I'm not sure, but we had a lot of China berry trees. I mean, that was,
But short of
that's just
fire,
what you
tornado,
call 'em.
or a chainsaw, they're immortal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So I had to learn a lot, ask a lot of questions because it's like one of my first questions I learned after a while is this the original engine? If it's not, where did you get that engine? That kind of thing. But one
And
of the things
10.
I did,
But wait, you're 10, right? You're like
yeah.
you're like 10. This is a Ron Howard movie. I pull up, I come into the store, I need a part. They direct me to the counter, and a 10-year-old child is like, "Well, is that the original engine, man?" Oh my God.
But I got sort of, I don't know, I guess I got a little bit bored or whatever. And so one of the things I did to amuse myself while searching for parts is I would get all the information, and they would tell me it's a 71 and it's got a 283 engine, whatever. And so I'd look up the part and I would go get the part. And right before I handed it to them, I'd say, "What color is the car?" And they would say, "It's white." And I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, this one won't work. This is for a red one." And I'd walk back in behind the parts thing. I'd bring the same part back out. But I got them thinking that it's whatever color the car was.
Good Lord.
A child, Max. Max, you're at the auto parts store, and a literal child, a 10-year-old, is consulting with you on your parts. This had to be the funniest damn thing for anybody in that town.
Well, I mean, now listen, think about this. By the time I was 13, if you came into the store and you wanted to buy a washer or a dryer, I was the one you bought it from. Because I knew all the stuff on the Speed Queens. And so I was the appliance salesman and couldn't drive.
Well,
I mean,
What I would give to go to like a store and have a 13-year-old boy walk me through the features of like a dishwasher.
do you remember your pitch?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The biggest thing about the Speed Queen washer is it's a solid drum. It doesn't have the perforated drum because when you're washing your clothes, they're dirty. You put them in and they start washing. Now the water gets dirty. Then when you decide to rinse them, the rinse water is pushing through your clothes to go out that perforated drum. So now you're straining the dirty water back through your clothes. But with the Speed Queen, the dirty water goes straight out the top into the drain, and the fresh water comes in. So your clothes are rinsed in clean water. I got to be real honest with you, ma'am. If you're washing your clothes in anything other than a Speed Queen, you're dirty.
Oh my God, this child just sold me a washing machine.
It's true.
So I come home and I say to Kevin, "All right, I picked one. They're going to deliver it Tuesday." "What made you pick that one?" "There was this child. There was this little boy, and he started talking to me. He works there. Apparently, he must be a genius. He started talking to me about how my clothes were not going to be clean without a Speed Queen."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So listen, man. I had one guy come in. We had lawnmowers too, and this old guy come in. I mean, he was, I don't know, he was probably 80 years old. He comes in with his son, and he's wanting to buy this lawnmower. And so he asked me, the old guy, he goes, "What kind of guarantee you got on this lawnmower?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, in your case, I'm going to say lifetime." And just for a second, he wasn't sure if I had just insulted him. And I wasn't sure either. It was a risky move. And all of a sudden, he threw his head back, started dying laughing. He said, "Hell, I'll take it then." And I said, "Well, that's fine, because I don't believe you'll outlive this lawnmower. I really don't." So,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
No.
And Lamar, I just have the feeling that you were not an early bloomer. That at 13, some 13-year-olds look like grown men.
Oh
get the
no, I
feeling
look
that
like
was not you.
No,
Yeah.
that was not me. I looked exactly my age. There's no doubt about that. So, now sometimes, like I say now, sometimes the public has a sense of humor, but sometimes they don't. And not only we sold stuff, but we also delivered. We delivered everything we sold. And in the case of washers and dryers, we installed them and all of that. And so, if I sold you the Speed Queen washer and dryer, it was me coming to your house with the other guy that had a license. I didn't have a license, but it was
I'm
me
sorry.
coming to the house.
Wait.
And
The 13-year-old is coming to my house. Not only did he sell it to me, but to install it too.
yes. I mean, but then installing a washing machine, there's nothing to it. And same thing with the dryer. I mean, you just got to run the hoses and, hook all them up and that kind of stuff. But we did that. And if anybody bought a bunch of stuff like fertilizer and stuff like that, we would deliver that also. And so one day, me and the owner's son, his name was Harry Strickland, and he was probably about 5 or 6 years older than me. We went to deliver some bags of cow manure to a lady. And so we drove out to her house, and oh God, it was huge. You could tell these people were loaded. I mean, this is out there where the golf course was, the whole deal. So we walk up to the door, and I ring the bell, and she comes to the door, and she said, and I said, "Hey, we're here to deliver some cow manure." And she looked at me and she says, "Is it in bags?" And I said, "Well, it sure
Ma'am, it's
ain't
in the cow. Of
Yeah,
course.
I said, that's what I said. Well, it sure ain't in the cow.
You did not say that.
Yeah, because I thought it was funny. I thought she would think it was funny. And evidently she did not. She responded and she goes, "How fresh. How very fresh." Well, at that point, I was not reading the room right. And I said, "Well, it's not that fresh. That's why it's in a bag." She slammed the door. And so we just went ahead and left because we felt like it wasn't working out. So we get back. My boss, Harry's dad, his name was Charles Strickland, and he owned the store. And he had got the phone call from this woman, and boy, was she pissed off. I mean, and he said, "Look, you got to go back out there and you got to turn this around." He said, "You got to go back out there and apologize so that she'll take this and, whatever." And so I did. I went back out there and she come to the door and I said, "Ma'am, I am so, so sorry." I said, I was attempting to be funny, and looking back, it was not funny. And you certainly didn't think it was funny, and I apologize. And so she accepted the apology, and we unloaded all the stuff.
I know it was a different time and people had different standards for decorum and whatnot, but an actual child is working in this job.
A smart-ass child, no less.
I'm not going to be able to go back into my mansion and call down to the store and demand to have this child disciplined for the way he sold my manure. Like, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. She was a stick in the mud. She really was. But,
She
that's the
was.
one thing I will say this. Working with the general public and having people of all ages and whatever and all walks of life, it really taught me a lot about reading the room. It was very seldom I'm not able to know who appreciates a good turn of a phrase and those who don't. So, but you got to know, you got to mess up a few times to figure out where it's at and, what you can do and what you can try. So,
Yep.
but
yeah, no, go on.
If everybody at some point in their life had to work retail and deal with people coming in off the street and helping them out and whatever, if everybody had to do that just for a little while, it would give everybody a different idea of how you need to treat people.
I
It
agree.
would make a lot of difference. It would make a lot of difference. It really would.
I think everybody should have a job where you have to serve an unappreciative public, whether it's in retail or food service, because it teaches you a lot. It teaches you patience and forbearance. And hopefully it also teaches you that you don't know what somebody's going through. Sometimes sometimes people lash out and you find out why, and it's just heartrending. But I still do not think that if a child showed up at my door with a manure delivery, that I could call the boss and yell at the boss about it. Could you, Max? I don't think I could do that.
No.
She might have been the original Karen. I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
She could have been.
So.
She could have been. But I was shocked though, because I thought that was so funny, but immediately the look on her face was not. It was just. She couldn't even imagine that somebody would be standing there saying that. I'm like, well, okay, whatever.
Lamar,
So-
I was always in trouble as a kid for being fresh, and I hadn't thought of that. I haven't heard that expression in forever.
Oh, yeah.
But now we know as grown-ups that if you got a fresh kid, you may have an entertainer on your hands.
Yeah. If you think about it, in real life, I had never heard anybody use the word fresh like that. Now in the movies, you could see that in the movies. Somebody, well, that's you're being fresh, Because for me, I mean, the word fresh was like, it's not rotten. I mean, it's it's fresh. It's not, But yeah, it's
yeah.
It was a good thing. So,
how
speaking
long
of-
did you? Well, I'm
Wait.
just curious. How long did you stay in the retail business? Did you age out at 15 or something? Like what happened?
No, I worked there till I got married.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I paid for all my stuff. I paid for my car. I paid. That's how, Oh yeah, yeah. Well, my first car, the cows paid for, but then after that, I stepped on up to a new car. So yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had to get that retail gig. I love it. So did you, when you were an appliance salesman at 13, was it a straight salary, hourly, or
Yeah, it was
commission,
straight.
or
It was
what?
no, it was straight salary.
No
I didn't know anything
commission.
else. No commission. Just
Did the boss ever give you slide you a Christmas bonus because you were such an effective little salesperson?
Well, no, he was a very generous man. He did it Christmas time and stuff like that. Yeah, I have no complaints. I enjoyed working there. I mean, it was was great.
I love it.
When I was cleaning office buildings at the age of 15, I had something called a work permit. Did you have to have a
Had to.
What are you talking about? He just wrote me a check with no taxes or nothing. He wrote me a check. I didn't pay taxes or nothing.
Oh, wow.
I was a kid working. I mean, that was just it. So I tell you what, though, the toughest part of that job was, like, we delivered a lot of stuff, and like we sold a lot of TVs and stuff, and they would buy it on credit. And I've told y'all about this many years ago, but sometimes me and his wife, she worked there too. She was an accountant, took care of all the bookkeeping and stuff like that. And every few months, she would pull up the stuff where people wasn't paying, and we'd get in the truck and we'd go repossess stuff. And repossessing is not fun. That's not fun. I could read the room during repossessing. There was no jokes in repossession. It was not good. It was not good.
This
Now,
sounds this sounds like a lurid 1950s movie. I was a teenage repo man.
Listen. What the first thing we would do? Here's what would happen. She'd come to me and she said, and I was driving at that time, and she'd say, "Lamar, get the truck, pull it around, and put a refrigerator on the truck." I knew what we was fixing to do. We'd put a refrigerator on the truck, and we started hunting somebody down. We'd have to start asking people. Maybe the address wasn't right. We'd pull up and ask somebody where so and so lived. And when they saw the refrigerator in the back of the truck, they figured we was delivering something. So they would always tell us the right house and stuff. That's how we found everybody. You go up there with nothing in the truck, people don't know who you're talking about. But if you got a refrigerator or something up in the back of the truck and it looks like you're delivering, they'll tell you.
God. You had a decoy appliance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The worst one, on a Saturday morning, we went out, we picked up a couple of things. And one of the things we went in the house to get a TV. And there's 3 kids in their pajamas sitting there eating cereal. And they're watching Quick Draw McGraw or something. I don't know. Yeah. we had to repo that TV.
Oh,
That was a bad day.
That's a bad day. She asked, she said, "Can you make a payment?" And the guy said, "No." And he hadn't made a payment in forever. I mean, he was never going to pay for the TV. She said, "Can you pay anything on the TV?" He said, "No, I can't." And she said, "Well, if you don't, I'm going to have to take that TV." And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, we're not doing this. Surely we're not. Can we not wait till 12:30? Because cartoons go off at 12." I mean, it was
And no kid is sad to see Kukla, Fran, and Ollie get repoed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nope. Went back there and unplugged the TV and took the antenna wire off, and we went out the door with that TV. Sure did. That was the roughest one. That was a rough one.
were you ever
Oh.
threatened whenever you did that? Because I know guys that repossess cars, they've been shot at and all
Yeah.
kinds
That's
of
dangerous.
crazy things.
Yeah.
No, because listen, Barbara was a statuesque woman. She was probably about 6'1". I mean, she was a tall woman and had white hair that turned white when she was like 12 years old. She had this beautiful white. And I'm talking about not white like your hair, Sheri. I'm talking about white.
Like,
I mean, it was white.
yeah, like
Yeah.
platinum white. Yeah.
Yeah, it was platinum white. And I mean, she was no bullshitting around. I mean, she was not. I mean, she walked in, she stated her business, and she was straight up. So yeah, nobody ever said a cross word. I mean, and I'm along for the ride. So
You're the muscle.
no, she was the muscle.
You have had in your life, starting with your mom, you have had a life that has really been strongly shaped by very, very strong women.
Oh yeah.
When you think about it,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're married to a strong woman. Your
Yep.
daughters are strong women. It's like
Yeah.
you that was your destiny this time around. You have been riding shotgun with some bad bitches.
Hey, speaking of Kaylee, she just had the baby yesterday.
Oh,
No,
wow.
did she really? What did
Yep,
we
she did.
have?
She had a little boy, and I asked her, I said, how much did he weigh? And she starts trying to explain to me how much he weighed, because she said, God, she said, I can tell you exactly in metric terms, but you refuse to learn the metric system. I said, listen here. I said, hold up. You're the one that moved over to the metric system. I'm still here, where a pound is a pound.
So she was trying to tell you in kilos what the baby weighs.
Well, yeah, she's trying to. So what is she? All right, she is 3,084 grams, whatever that is, and she's 51 centimeters long. So I think it's around 6 pounds. I don't know.
Do we have a name yet?
Yeah, this was normally we don't get the name for a week because they don't name. They let the baby, usually they stay around the baby for a while before they name. A lot of times they leave the hospital, and see, she'll be in the hospital for 5 days. In Japan, she's in the hospital for 5 days.
Wow.
Visiting hours, there's only a 15-minute window where her husband can come see her. 15 minutes. That's it.
6 pounds and almost 8 ounces is what that is.
Okay. So 6.5 pounds. Yeah. But his name is Kyo. Kiyo. Very soft O.
Kyo.
Kyo.
Oh, I like that. And mother
And
and
that
baby,
means-
everybody's
that means-
good.
That means strong leaf.
Strong
each one
leaf,
of her
Kyo.
Each one of her kids' names is associated with like a tree or a flower. Yeah, it's like some, there's a meaning with every name. There's a meaning with every name.
I
That's a big
love
deal.
Kyo. That's a pretty name. And
Yeah.
everybody's good. Mom and baby healthy. Everybody's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, everybody's good. And so we got to see, we're FaceTiming, and we look and we said, well, he's pretty. She goes, he looks like the other three. They all look exactly the same when they're born. And now in about 3 weeks, when he gets home, he will be like a big butterball because all of her kids, they're like the last one, when she held up her hands, you couldn't see her fingers. She's so fat. I mean, but after about a year and a half, 2 years, I mean, once they start walking and going, I mean, they start to grow up and get thin. But she told me, because we're looking at her, and I'm looking at the picture right now, and he is a mixed child because she's American and is Japanese, and they make the pretty. Oh my gosh, they make the most beautiful.
Their kids
children.
are gorgeous. They have gorgeous children.
But she showed me on his legs, on each side of his legs in kanji, it's written. One leg says Yanase, which is their last name, and the other leg says Kaylee, and it's in black magic marker. Every baby that's born, they write that on their shins. Okay, they got black magic marker that's got their mama's name on them. And I told Kelly,
so there's no mixing anybody's babies up. There's I love that.
I told Kaylee, I said, well, I don't guess nobody's ever left here with the wrong baby. And she goes, well, they must have once. That's when they started writing on them. But she told me, she said, listen, you could go put him in the middle of the whole room and they would know who to bring him back to, because there is it doesn't look like a big difference to us, but it's a big difference over there. I mean, it's a big, they know that he's a mixed baby.
So this is their fourth, right? This is their fourth child?
That's 2 boys and 2 girls. Yeah.
You think they'll keep going, or are they done?
I thought they was done before. She said, well, I'm pregnant. Oh, well, when we found out she was pregnant, we were FaceTiming, and Emmy, the oldest daughter, Emmy said, we're having a baby. And I'm like, what? And so that's how we found out. And I think Jared might have made a mistake on the third one. Jared said, was that planned? And she took big offense to that. So I made sure that all I said was, that's fantastic. I mean, but this is
well, hell, at this rate, those kids are going to need to get over to the nearest appliance store and get themselves a name tag, because we're going to need them chipping in. What do they call you and Carla? What did the kids call you and Carla?
Papa and Gigi. Papa and Gigi. So they don't have, I just wondered if there was like a really precious little Japanese grandparent nickname that they had for you. No, they call us Papa and Gigi. So. But I've told you this before. One reason these people in Japan, one reason they're in such great health. At the first, when you're in the first grade, you have to walk to school.
Oh yeah.
Not with your parents. You have to walk by yourself. First graders walk to school, and they're about a mile from the school. So every day, the 2 of them are walking a mile to school and a mile back every day. But they all eventually do it. And everybody does it.
People there are a lot of people in this country that would love to see that and rant and scream and shake their fists at the heavens. Like, why don't we have that? Because one, we don't have a society that really prizes the safety of children. Look at car culture. Like it's hard to get across the street in some places, right? Oh, yeah. So and that's just like the most obvious way that like we really don't. We don't collectively look out for everybody's kids. And one of the things I remember that you told me when you and Carla went to Japan, I think on your last visit, watching all these little kids, like 6-year-olds, walking alone independently, and how much that blew your mind, right?
Oh, yeah.
Seeing that.
Yeah. But see, one of the things they don't have in Japan, children... Nobody. It's like it used to be many years ago here. Like I spent my whole childhood running around uptown with a blank gun, running into alleys. My mama didn't know. She had no idea where I was when we got up there. I would eat something for breakfast and read a couple of comic books, and then come 9:00 when the stores is open, I'd hit the road. So I'm all over that town. She had no idea, but she didn't worry about it because nobody messed with a kid. And in Japan,
Yeah, it was different. It was different.
It's just very that is such a rarity. It is a rarity. I mean, they'll ride them on. They'll do the subway by themselves at like 9 years old. No problem. I mean, so it's.
I mean, we
different
do have like in New York, for example, we do have kids who routinely ride public transit to school by themselves. You'll see them if you're
that's
sometimes
true.
if
That's true.
sometimes if I'm in New York for business, like on a regular school day, it's really fun to watch the kids coming and going to school independently like that. And like you, I kind of grew up in the middle of nowhere most of my childhood. And you could free range because there was plenty of ground to go around, right? You weren't worried about crossing streets and getting hit by cars. But wow. Oh my gosh, Lamar. So 10-year-old auto parts salesman, 13-year-old appliance salesman, teenage repo man.
I've had some fun. I have had some fun. So.
Wow. Well, I'm super thrilled. The new Kia. Oh, I just love it. That's an awesome.
I'm gonna have to start thinking about this because a lot of this in my head, it sounds normal. But when I say it out loud,
do it. Yeah.
Oh no, don't. Then we won't have anything to talk about.
Yeah,
well, Mama got me a starter pistol to keep me occupied.
All right. Well, listen here. That's about all of this episode. Thank y'all for listening. Really. Hope everybody enjoyed it. If so, tell somebody about Talking Lamar podcast, and maybe they'll appreciate it. I know I will. Also, check out the multiple award-winning True Weird Stuff podcast. It will change your life, and it'll make you the most interesting person at a party. There's more to come on Talking Lamar, so don't stop now because I hate a quitter. Join us for the next episode and let us know what you think. Go to the Bob Sheri app. Look down at the bottom, click on the microphone and just start talking. We listen to every message, and you can also call 844-52-SHERI and leave a message on the phone. Until then,